So good morning everyone. Thanks for those of you who've managed to find the time to join. I know a couple of colleagues said they were teaching at this time. So what I plan to do is to record this webinar and then share the links out either for those that can't make it or those that want to have a listen back over what we've said today. And I'll also share a number of other supporting documents as well. So I suppose the first thing to say is thank you, and it's a big thank you for your interest in joining our Apprenticeships Digital Credentials pilot. We're really keen to work with a range of provider types on this pilot, so across FE colleges, PTPs and also employers, because we think digital credentials provide a really exciting new way to motivate and reward apprentices through that on-programme progression, helping your apprentices really take the lead in their own skills development and drive both accountability and independence for their learning as well. And we think that the issuing of digital credentials could be aligned to the mandatory 12-week progress reviews as well. So Sitting Guilds is now beginning to show that it's easier to realise opportunities when we can see every skill, when we're able to see really the bigger picture. And to do this, we empower the enablers of skills development to take more control of ensuring people can be objectively seen for who they really are and who they could be. So we're trying to help people, organisations and economies to develop the right skills for growth in a more agile, responsive and trackable way. Now, the many qualifications that Sitting Guilds offer are already credentials in their own right and are naturally evolving over time to become more digital. And you'll continue to see us helping to digitise all objective statements of progression, development or achievement. We've already seen the step from paper certificates being supported by e-certificates, and digital credentials for some of our qualifications is the next obvious step in that evolution of communicating and verifying credentials. So I've just pulled some of the benefits of digital credentials into an infographic that you might find useful to perhaps share with colleagues or to position why we're doing what we're doing with digital credentials. So I hope you find that a useful diagram. So if we think about who needs digital credentials, there are three main roles within any digital credentials framework. There's the role of the issuer, i.e. the individual or the organisation issuing or awarding the credentials. There's the learner, or more commonly we call them the earner of the credential, and the reviewer, the individual who looks at a badge and seeks to understand more of what lies behind it as evidence of that credential. So digital credentials have benefits for each person in that chain. So let's start with the issuer first. Now, digital credentials offers a great opportunity to promote your organisation and your learners by very clearly defining your expectations, confirming progress and rewarding all achievements and development. With regards to the earners, it helps their career to grow by enabling them to understand their learning framework, to evidence, manage, showcase and share their digital credentials safely and securely online. And at the final stage, it helps the reviewer of the badges to discover, understand and validate the digital credentials quickly and simply online. Now, digital credentials are built upon a secure open standard, with key data always being recorded. Now, having this globally adopted open badge standard makes wider sharing of digital credentials possible and also allows them to be stacked against credentials awarded from a variety of different sources, as they all share that same underpinning rules and have the same data kind of hard baked into them. So if we think of some of the problems that we're looking to try and overcome with our use of digital credentials, it's really around that gap between employers and education systems, which means the skills being developed and recognised aren't always what employers want to see. So there are too many people unemployed or underemployed in jobs they hate because many of their skills and experiences are invisible, especially those developed on the job. And the skills needed by employers change so rapidly due to globalization, automation, and artificial intelligence that educators can't always keep up with that pace. Self-certified CVs and LinkedIn profiles are no longer fully trusted and have little objectivity. Expensive formal and linear learning programs, so a one-size-fits-all approach, is not always agile and responsive to the skills needed, especially some of those more human skills. And closed either learning or talent management systems that lock in achievements increase invisibility of workplace credentials because they aren't portable outside of that system. And also some traditional certificates just simply aren't fit for the modern online age. So if we have a think about why we think digital credentials are a good approach for on-programme apprenticeships, we can see that especially where there might no longer be mandatory qualifications, digital credentials have the potential to offer the following benefits. So the first is around apprenticeship framework expectation setting. This is what I as a learner or we as a provider need to evidence on programme. It offers really clear milestones of achievement, so we can break down long apprenticeship programmes, we're talking 3 years for automotive, into bite-sized chunks prior to the gateway decisions or endpoint assessment process. And digital credentials also offer the opportunity to ensure that learners who don't complete an apprenticeship aren't in the position of walking away with nothing to show. And lots of the providers we've spoken to are very focused on that duty of care they have to their learners. And it's a great tool to drive standardisation, so it provides consistency of delivery across multiple delivery locations by large and often disparate teams of trainers or assessors. So here is what our new digital credential platform looks like. It's built upon the digitalme.credly EU hosted platform. DigitalMe is now part of the wider City and Guilds group. If you follow that link at the top, you can go to that platform and have a look. You can click on any of the credentials that are there. So if we have a look at the framework that we've designed for automotive light vehicle, you can see we've aligned it to the gateways. You can see that we've aligned some of the visuals on the badges to dashboard warning lights and symbols that might come up on the dashboard. You can see that we've got the Maths and English and the F-gas regulation kind of sitting outside of the gateways because they can be achieved at any time before that endpoint assessment. And you can see we've got 2 endpoint assessment badges for either pass or distinction. Now the design of those final endpoint assessment badges might evolve a little bit over the course of the pilot. We're still investigating a few designs for that badge, but there will certainly be 2 endpoint assessment badges. So if we have a look at a couple of examples of the metadata, and metadata is really just the kind of fancy term for the criteria that sits behind each badge in our framework. So here you can begin to get a sense of the level of detail that we embed into the digital credential. And you can see an example here of a routine service and inspection credential, and also of a Gateway 1 soft skills and behaviours credential. And if at any time you click on the credentials in the platform, this data will appear. So you'll always be clear what data and criteria you're working towards. So in terms of kind of the nuts and bolts, and in terms of how we want you as a centre to be able to issue a digital credential, the first thing that we're going to need you to do is to fill out and return a quality statement to be part of the pilot, and I'll send that round after this webinar. And that's really just to give us the names of the people who will be making those decisions about issuing of credentials and a few other bits of data that we need from you for the pilot to take off. So centres can view that metadata, as I mentioned. So if you click on each credential, you can see that metadata to understand the requirements. And the decision about when a learner is ready to be issued with that credential sits with you as a centre. So it's entirely up to you for you to decide when you think a learner has achieved that particular element of their on programme. And to simplify the process, because this is a pilot, it's new to you guys, it's relatively new to City and Guilds. What we want to happen in this first instance is when you think a learner is ready to be issued with a credential, we want you to just send us a few pieces of information, and we'll take control of the rest of it. So all we need you to do is give us the name of the learner, an email address for the learner, and tell us which digital credential they have earned. And again, after this call, I will send you around a spreadsheet that allows you to put that data in the right columns that we need it in. You need to send it into digitalcredentials@cityandguilds.com, and we will then issue that credential on your behalf. Now, initially, our SLA to issue credentials will be 5 working days, because this is a new process for us, but I envisage that will quickly come down, and as the pilot evolves, I will communicate any improvements on that SLA. For the endpoint assessment digital credential, we will confirm the method for issuing those nearer the time, because we're still exploring a couple of options. Option 1 is it will be exactly the same process. Option 2 is we may be able to draw that data from our internal records. So I'll keep you posted on that bit. So in terms of how will an apprentice receive that digital credential? Well, once we've issued it, they'll be notified by an email, and you can see the body of that email there on the right-hand side of the slide. We'll also give apprentices access to a Getting Started guide. So if you go to that link that's underlined, you'll see that guide, and I can send around hard copies of that if you need me to. And from within that profile that they're prompted to create, the first time they get an email saying they've been awarded a credential, if they haven't already set up an account, they'll be prompted to set up an account. And that is really just for them to securely store, manage, and communicate their City and Guilds achievements. And the nice thing about digital credentials is their reach, I think that's one of their main advantages. So once a learner has got that credential, they can then choose to share it on Facebook, they can choose to put it on Twitter, they could add it to a LinkedIn profile, they could embed it into their own website if they've got their own web pages, they can copy links to put in emails, they can download thumbnails of that badge. It really does allow them a great deal of flexibility in being able to share that. And obviously, because all the metadata in that credentials is safe, locked down and secure, anyone who's looking at that can see exactly what they did, exactly who awarded the badge, exactly when and how. So all the data is baked in. And the nice thing is that an individual within the platform can begin to create their own profile. So they can pull in any credentials that they get issued by City and Guilds. They can also, over time, have a single profile that can evidence every skill and achievement. So it might be that they've achieved things from voluntary organisations, that they've been issued digital credentials, and they can begin to pull all of their digital credentials into one showcase to really help them to promote what they do and all the different skills that they've acquired. So in terms of support for the pilot, we've set up a knowledge base. So if there are any questions about the platform and the functionality of the platform, there's lots of FAQs and how-to guides on that knowledge base. If you've got any kind of technical issues that you need to speak to someone about, you can contact our digital support team at City and Guilds. I've put their email and telephone number there. And if you've got any sort of questions or feedback for me, my name is Lorna Titania, I'm Digital Product Manager, and I'll be kind of running this pilot. And I'm really interested to see, which elements of the pilot really resonate with your centres, any challenges, problems, ideas for improvements that you have. I'm really keen to keep really close to this pilot, because obviously the end game for City and Guilds is this approach being used on a whole range of apprenticeships, We're just trialling it with 2 initially. We're trialling it with automotive light vehicle and a customer service practitioner one. As I say, our ambition is certainly to roll this out across all apprenticeship frameworks over time. So I'm really keen to hear your feedback, both in terms of the centres and the issuing process, and also any feedback from your learners about what it means to them to receive a badge and how they shared it, what they did with it, perhaps what employers' response was to looking at those badges for the first time. So I hope today's been a useful use of your time. I will send through a link to this webinar after the event with the other bits of supporting documentation that I mentioned, and I look forward to working with you on this pilot. Thanks very much.